Yep, there we go. There's a lot of books out there that are available, and sometimes it's difficult to find books that fit what your family's culture is looking for. So one of the things that I've tried to ask myself is what kind of books am I looking for specifically? Am I looking for bilingual books? Am I looking for just books that are in Spanish? Am I looking for books that will help build where my girls are both at as 10 years old and 4 years old, who are not bilingual yet, but are learning? We're all in the process of learning. And so I sort of divide all of the books that I am looking for into different categories. There's books with some Spanish within an English story. This is an old favorite. A lot of you will probably be very familiar with a lot of these. So it's mostly English, but some Spanish words mixed in. And my youngest is especially fond of rhyming books that are just super fun because they have all these fun rhymes, and she loves trying to figure out, oh yeah, that's that Spanish word. I don't remember what that means. She also really, really loves songs. There are a lot of song books out there, and our favorite one right now is this one because you can actually press the button and it will sing the entire song for the child. So that's been absolutely amazing for her. For my older daughter, she likes books that are more early chapter books. So a website that wasn't working today was called Fluency Matters, but it has sort of early chapter books. So where they're actually pretty in depth. And if you don't know what a word means, there's a tiny little dictionary in the back that will show what the word is if you're stuck. But it's probably early elementary level up to intermediate elementary level books that are entirely in Spanish. So that's been really, really helpful. I also want to prioritize learning about different cultural traditions. So one of the things that we do is we do cascarones around Easter time. And I found one book about cascarones. So it's Confetti Eggs, and this is by it's kind of a long name. So I'm going to post a picture of it later. So if you don't quite get anything written down or something, I'll be posting these later on for people. But this was seriously the only book. So sometimes I have to specifically search for something that I really want to know. So, okay, now I'm going to share my screen. I couldn't figure this out last time I tried to do a presentation, so apologize if it takes me just a second. Okay, so hopefully this is it. Let's see. Yes, it should work. Sorry, taking me just a second trying to do that. Okay, can anyone see my screen yet, or is it not working yet?
Not yet. You would need to press the arrow button going up.
That should work. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, now I should be able to do this. Okay, can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, I did it. Okay, technology is not my strong point. Okay, so just questions that I ask: how can I find books? How will I keep track of books? What do I want to prioritize? I already talked a bit about how I want to prioritize, kind of dividing out books into different types of categories. I keep track of books by simply taking a picture of it on my phone and then putting it in albums on my phone, and then I can just keep track of everything. I love to find books about people from our different wonderful eclectic cultures, like this book, which was great for my older daughter. Just different people, Dolores Huerta, Roberto Clemente. This author, this is probably my favorite author for elementary school. So if you have not heard of him, I would definitely look him up. Pretty much every single book that he has written, we have gotten from the library and loved. So this is one of our favorites as well. It's a lot of historical stories that he does, a lot of traditional stories, which are really, really cool. This is another really fun one. It kind of incorporates a little bit more of traditional aspect of culture into a really fun kids story. Once again, I'll be sharing some of these in a list later on. So if you don't get them all, if you want to write them down, then I'll be sharing that later. Another aspect that my kids really love at this age is taking a fable that is normally an English fable and putting it into more of a Mexican or a Spanish style and a Hispanic Latino form. So this was based off of Little Red Riding Hood, and instead it's Federico and the Wolf. So that was a really great way to sort of take a fairy tale and turn it on its side. This has been a favorite, Rattlestiltskin, instead of Rumpelstiltskin. So instead of it being so Eurocentric, all the fairy tales that little kids often read, all the fairy tales that are so intrinsic to Western culture, being able to say, well, yes, those may have come from these countries, but there's a way to transform them into culture that's different. It doesn't all have to be just this one way. Rhyming books. This is another author that has a lot of books for early readers, Susan Middleton Elia. This is one that is in a rare category where it's not just English writing, it's not just Spanish, like the Spanish is mimicking exactly what the English is saying, but it's actually two groups of people, one speaking English, one speaking Spanish, and having a conversation within the book. So even if you don't know a lot of Spanish, you can still sort of understand what is being said by the context, but it provides much more of a real life situation where you have people who are learning to speak each other's languages. No group is shown as having the dominant language, but they're learning to interact together. And that is something that I really, really value in books. So it goes back and forth. And so this for elementary kids has been really, really great to have, where we get to practice reading and speaking in Spanish, and then reading and speaking in English as well. This is our absolute favorite, El Chupacabras. I had not really found a great book about this incredible legend until this book. And so I highly, highly recommend this one. Once again, it goes back and forth, but it mixes the Spanish and English. So it's not just one language or the other. No matter where you're trying to come from, the Spanish or the English, they're both incorporated into the story. And it's beautifully written, it's beautifully done. And this story has gotten read, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of times at our house. So lots of great books that are out there. Most of these I have found either through my library system, or if they don't have it at the library, I request that they get it. They've been very accommodating. There's a lot of space right now for people of color to say, I would like more of my language in the library systems here. So I take advantage of that and say, please, I want bilingual books. I want books in Spanish. Please put the display of Spanish books right here in the front of our library so that we can, it's not just related to some foreign language section in the back with one tiny little shelf down at the bottom. I want it to be front and center. And so having those kinds of conversations has really opened up a lot of doors in our community. And that's been really, really great. A book like this has been on the front shelf of our library. And so just for my girls, seeing that there's a book like this where people who are not necessarily bilingual or Hispanic or Latino are looking at this and going, oh, wow, I could learn more about cooking these different recipes. And some of them are a little bit different than what I would do. We were looking and comparing this recipe to the one that we make, going, oh, we wouldn't make it this way, but that's okay. But it's really awesome to see that these are being more mainstream. For myself and for teens, I love to get poetry. This is a new item that has been beautiful. I cried multiple times reading this book. And for my 10-year-old, and especially some of the younger teens in our co-op who are learning to speak Spanish as well, having something like this where we practice reading poetry aloud, and then we also practice reading it in Spanish aloud. And how do you phrase it in English and Spanish? How do you read something that's beautiful, not just prose? That has been really beautiful to work on with poetry. And then for myself, this has been a very exciting book. I highly recommend it. I had to order it from, you can see the label, I had to order it from a different library in a different part of the state, but it has been really interesting to understand more cultural aspects for what I am hoping to incorporate into our own family. And that for me is really what it boils down to, is I want culture in my family. I want my girls to feel like they understand their Latino heritage and they feel like we can connect with that. So it's not a very long book. This is a page from the book, so it's pretty brief, but it's really, really well written. So if you are interested in Dia de Muertos, then I would really recommend this one. Finding cultural books for myself, finding poetry for myself is another big way of showing my kids and bringing it into my own life. So these are going to be posted later on the Latinos group if you are interested in finding more Instagram accounts, because all of these on the left are ones that are just people who love to find books and love to share them. So I follow all these people on Instagram and they'll post a book that they found and I'll go, oh, that looks so cool. And I'll look for it in my library. I'll look for it on thrift books. This one especially, the second one, that's a young teen who has been putting out middle school books that she's been reading, and that's super exciting. So if you have any teens, the second one here, Books in My Mochila, that was a really good one. And then on the right, these are I'm forgetting the name, organizations that print or publicize books that are bilingual or Spanish books. So I've really appreciated following them, because at the instant a new book comes out, I'm all over it going, okay, is this going to be something that I think I would really love to have? And sometimes I look at it and go, I don't think that's something that I want right now. And sometimes I go, yes, I'm putting in a request at my library right now. Please get this book. And they've been really helpful with that, like I said. So those are some of the books that we've loved. I'll share those later. Yeah, so that's what I had. Now I just have to figure out how to stop sharing. There we go. Okay.
Thank you, Alyssa, so much. I love that book about Sylvia Mendez. I think she has one that's called, there's one written about her. It's called Sylvia and Aki, and I think it's a middle school book. It's such good history. Thank you for sharing all of those. And I wasn't familiar with all of those Instagram accounts, so thank you so much. And also, if she wanted to talk, we have also a, speaking about books, Latinos Homeschooling started a book club last school year. So if you want to talk about that, Hyatt.
Yes. So we have a book club for teens and tweens in Latinos Homeschooling group. We meet Thursdays it's 11 a.m. I'm in Seattle, so 11 a.m. Pacific.
1 p.m. Central.
1 p.m. Central.
2 p.m.
And 2 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
And it is 100% student led. The kids, the parents kind of coach a little bit in the background, but it's mostly the kids leading everything. Last week, a young man who is part of the group kicked us off for the first week of it. And he came up with such thoughtful questions, and the kids were super excited, engaged. So if you have a child who is anywhere between 10 and teen years, we are currently reading a book called The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora, and it's really good. I listened to it on audiobook and I really enjoyed it. And the kids have been really enjoying it too. I think it does a good job of capturing sort of the awkwardness of feeling out the teen years and kind of navigating some things that they go through. But then it has an aspect too of activism where his neighborhood is starting to experience gentrification, and his family's restaurant is being pushed out. So it talks a lot about how kids can be involved in their local communities and support their cultural heritage within their communities. So again, if you have a child that is in that age range, we would love to have them at book club. You can message me for more information on Facebook, and and I can put you in. We have a group that is just for active members of the book club right now for parents to get information. So I really encourage you to join. It's been a really cool way. My daughter absolutely loves it. She's leading tomorrow. It's just been a great way for the kids to connect. And Seattle, there's not a lot of Latinos out here. So it's been great for us to connect with other people who look like us and who share some of our cultural heritage. It is in English. That's a great question. So the kids speak in English, but there are times where they'll talk about a Spanish word and talk about, kind of what that means in various Latino cultures. And the current book is about a young Cuban boy. So they're learning about Cuban cultural heritage in Florida.
Yeah, we try to find books that are written by Latinos in the US because that's our experience. The good thing about most of these books is that they're somehow, their parents might be immigrants, or there's a story there that talks about the country where their parents or grandparents might have originated from. But I'm all for, I can go on and preach about a lot of things that happen. Like sometimes I wish there would be more representation of Latino Americans in Hollywood versus getting people from Mexico to come here to act. I really want to focus on people here that live in the US. We do. And it's every semester we switch it up. So please, if you want to even, like we say in college, audit a class, it's tomorrow. Just if you want to have your child just join in. They don't have to talk. They could just see if they like it, and then and join us. We're an online community. Everything at this point is volunteer. So we're continuing to grow. So we'll see what happens in the future. Yeah, thank you, Hayat. And Hayat's been really leading with that as well.
I was wondering if I could share a book recommendation real quick, because when I was listening to the conversation, it reminded me, it's for younger kids, but I really like it. And it made me cry when I read it the first time with my son. So it's called Rosita y Conchita, a rhyming storybook in English and Spanish. And it is in here, it's in English and in Spanish. So it's nice to be able, we actually take a long time to read it because I read it in both languages at the same time. And it's a really good story, and I think it's a really cute story. It's a little sad. If I don't want to give any, what's it called? I'm forgetting the word. What's it called when you tell somebody what's going to happen in the book or a movie?
You want to spoil it?
Basically, yeah. Spoilers. Yeah.
Yes,
spoiler alert.
I'm forgetting how to talk right now. It's been a long day.
Oh, it's fine.
But it's a really cute book. I really like it, and I think it's a really good book to prepare for like El Día de los Muertos coming up if you celebrate that, and we do. And so we always start off like the El Día de los Muertos season with reading this book. So I just wanted to recommend it.
Thanks, Brittany.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna